All right, let's dive right into a really interesting vulnerability that popped up in NGINX, which, as you know, is one of the absolute workhorses of the internet. We're going to deconstruct CVE-2026-1642. It's a plain text injection flaw that perfectly shows what happens when we make a subtle, but very dangerous, assumption about how encrypted traffic works.
The first thing that really jumped out at me with this CVE wasn't the vulnerability itself, it was the scoring. Under the old CVSS version 3.1, it's a 5.9, a medium. But when you look at it through the lens of the new version 4.0, it shoots up to an 8.2 high. That's a huge leap. It's basically the scoring system telling us, hey, pay attention, the real-world damage here is way worse than it looks on the surface. So let's figure out why.
So before we get into the weeds of protocol-level stuff, here's the gist of it. Imagine you think you're in a secure, encrypted tunnel. This bug lets an attacker basically sneak up and just shove their own unencrypted malicious data right into that secure pipe. And the worst part? NGINX just takes that poison data and passes it right along to the user's browser, which accepts it as totally legitimate, trusted content. Yikes.
Okay, so to really get how this all went so wrong, we've got to first understand how it's supposed to work. We need to look at NGINX's design for handling what we call encrypted upstream connections. Let's call it the trusted tunnel model. We all know NGINX. It's pretty much everywhere, acting as the web's traffic cop. It takes connections from users and routes them to the right backend server. Now, a really common and good security practice is to encrypt that connection between NGINX and the backend too. The goal is to create this ironclad end-to-end encrypted tunnel, all the way from the user's browser to the final application. No gaps, no weak spots. And this right here is where the problem starts. It all comes down to a single, flawed assumption. The developers basically thought of this TLS tunnel as a sealed, tamper-proof box. They figured, hey, once the TLS handshake is done, every single byte we read from the network is legit, it's been decrypted, it's safe. And as we're about to see, that turned out to be a really, really dangerous assumption. All right, so how do you actually break into this supposedly trusted tunnel? Let's walk through the mechanics of the plaintext injection attack. Okay, let's break this down. First, an attacker needs to get themselves in a man-in-the-middle position, probably on the internal network between NGINX and the backend. Then NGINX does its thing. It sets up a perfectly valid encrypted TLS session with that backend. Now here comes the clever and nasty part. As the backend sends its encrypted response, the attacker grabs it and just tacks on their own junk, unencrypted plain text, right onto the end of the real data. When NGINX gets this, it does its job. It decrypts the legitimate part. But then it just keeps on reading. It slurps up the attacker's garbage right from the buffer. And boom, the result is a poisoned response, a mix of trusted and malicious data, sent to the client like everything's fine. Now, it's really important to get this straight. This isn't a problem with TLS itself. The encryption is fine. The problem is a pure logic bug in how NGINX was handling the data after decryption. This all boils down to a classic and dangerous mistake, a boundary synchronization error. The official name for this kind of bug is CVE-349. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it basically just means the system gets confused about where the good, trusted data ends and where the bad, untrusted data begins. Instead of keeping them separate, it just mushes them all together. Let me give you an analogy because this really helps make it click. Think of a TLS record like a sealed, authenticated envelope. You know it came from the right person, and you know exactly what's inside. NGINX's job was simple. Open the envelope, read the letter inside, and then stop. But that's not what it did. Instead, it read the letter and then just kept reading any other scraps of paper lying on the desk next to the envelope. And of course, who put those malicious scraps there? The attacker. Okay, so we've got the how. Now let's talk about the so what. What's the real-world damage here? Who's affected? And most importantly, how did the NGINX team fix it? Don't underestimate this. An attacker with this kind of control can do some serious damage. They could swap out your real login page with a pixel-perfect fake one to phish credentials. They could inject malicious JavaScript to steal session cookies, a classic XSS attack. Even worse, they could poison a downstream cache so that everybody visiting the site gets served the malicious content. And the real kicker? This attack can just blow right past other security measures you have, like your content security policy, making them totally useless. Okay, time to check your systems. This one hit a pretty wide range of NGINX products. We're talking open source, NGINX Plus, and the NGINX Gateway Fabric. So the bottom line here is simple. Take a good look at this list, check what versions you're running, and get patching. Seriously, do it now. So how'd they patch it? Well, the fix itself is actually pretty elegant, and it all comes down to a simple change in logic. The before logic was basically, hey, if it's in the network buffer after I decrypt something, it must be good. Let's use it. It was total blind trust. The after fix is the complete opposite. It's super strict. Now NGINX says, I am only going to process the exact bytes that came out of a decrypted TLS record. If there's even one extra byte hanging around in the buffer, something is very wrong. And what does it do? It slams the connection shut. Game over for the attacker. No more blind trust.
This whole thing is a fantastic learning opportunity, and it's not just about NGINX. Let's pull out some key lessons from this so we can all build better, more secure systems and hopefully prevent the next big breach.
So, when you boil it all down, what are we as developers and security pros supposed to take away from all this? What are the key actionable lessons here? Okay, developers, listen up. First and foremost, you have to validate your data boundaries. Don't just assume that a lower-level protocol like TLS is taking care of everything for you. Second, be defensive with your buffers. Remember, just because there are bytes available to be read doesn't mean they are validated. And finally, design your systems to be paranoid. If you get some kind of unexpected input, the safest move is to fail closed. Shut the connection down. Don't try to recover. And for the security teams out there, this is a huge reminder that the internal man in the middle is a very real and very dangerous threat. Your internal network is not a magical safe space. You need to apply zero trust principles inside your network, not just at the edge. Monitor that internal traffic for weird stuff, like response sizes suddenly getting bigger. And finally, please remember, data integrity attacks where data gets changed can be just as devastating as confidentiality attacks where data gets stolen. Ultimately, this whole thing comes down to a foundational security principle. An encrypted tunnel is only as strong as the software logic at its endpoints. The cryptography can be perfect, but one simple logic bug can bring the whole thing crashing down. It's a powerful lesson for all of us. Trust, but always, always verify the boundaries.